Hi, I'm Christoph, and today we're going to be making an anime-inspired night sky with stars and clouds. I made this scene inspired by Makoto Shinkai's Your Name, and today we're going to be focusing on the stars and clouds. If you're curious about this scene, you can download it together with the source files of this tutorial following the link below. Now, without further ado, let's start making a night sky. Let's start a new blend file. Let's delete the camera, delete the cube, and delete the light. We're gonna add a UV sphere. Let's size it up. Let's set it to shade smooth. We're gonna turn on the X-ray, and we're gonna go into edit mode. And then we're gonna select the second half of the sphere and just delete all of the vertices. And this is going to be the sky dome that we are going to use for our clouds. I'm gonna set it to viewport shading. And let's dive into our shader editor. Let's add a new shader. We're going to add an emission shader. And let's add two Voronoi textures. One of them we're going to set to 3 and the other one to 15. And we're going to blend them together using a mix RGB node. Let's plug the distance into both of the nodes and plug it into the emission. Let's also add a mapping and texture coordinate node and plug it into both of the Voronoi textures. And then we're also going to add a color ramp after the mix, and that way we can get a more stylized version for our clouds. And by mixing, we can get these little cloud shapes. We're going to turn this into a transparent shader. To do this, we're just going to add a transparent BSDF, a mix shader. I'm going to plug the emission and transparent into the mix shader and plug our color ramp into the alpha. And we're going to go to our material properties and set blend mode to alpha blend. Okay, this is going to be the base for our clouds. What we can do is also scale the Z. And what this is going to do is going to stretch the clouds, and as you can see, the upper clouds aren't stretched as much as the ones below, which is a nice effect and something I want. I can exaggerate it even more by stretching it a bit. And then also what we can do is we can take all of the vertices, the lower vertices of our dome, and we can stretch them a bit also to get a different effect if we want. I like this bell curve. Yeah, that seems about right. And I'm gonna set my scale to 1.5 for now. Okay, now we're gonna add a bit more detail to our shader, and we're gonna add two Musgrave textures. I'm gonna set the scale to 60, detail to 10, and dimensions to 1. In the next one, I'm gonna set scale to 90, detail to 10, and dimension to 1. And we're gonna mix them in using a mix RGB node. Gonna set the mix to a soft light on each of them. And then we're gonna set it to 0, and we're just gonna mix it in to taste. If you think the clouds are too big, you can go to the color ramp at the end and adjust it. So you can get some smaller clouds if you want to. And that's a nice base setup. And I think that's a bit too realistic, and I'm gonna adjust it by adding some color ramps. So let's add color ramps in between the Voronoi textures and the mix RGB node, and we're gonna do the same for the Musgrave textures. And then we can start adjusting them. I like to adjust them like this. And for the Musgrave, I'm gonna turn these around. I can get some sharper details by moving this black more towards the middle. And this is a nice effect. I can get some soft edges combined with some more harder edges, and there seems to be some detail. So that's what I like. You can play around with the different settings or different sizes if you want to get different sort of effects. And you can add additional layers of detail, but this is where I'm going to leave it for now. Now that we've got this set up, we're going to add some shadow. And to do this, we are going to copy everything up to our color ramp, our Voronoi to our color ramp, and we're just going to copy paste it. Great, drag it down here below. We're going to plug this into our emission shader. And we're also going to add a new mapping node. Just going to delete the texture coordinate node. And we're going to take our former mapping node. We're going to plug it into this mapping node. Make sure it's connected to both of the Voronoi textures. Once we've got this set up, I'm going to go to the Z scale of our second mapping node, and I'm going to set it to 1.03. And this is going to provide with a nice highlight. Now I can go into our last color ramp, and I can set up the colors for this scene. So I'm going to use 3 colors. Let's set it to a dark blue, a middle blue that's based on the dark blue, just a tiny bit lighter and less desaturated. And then I'm going to pick also a more light blue and desaturated. And this is going to be the shading of our clouds. I'm gonna set it like this for now. And I like this effect. Yeah, this seems about right. Let's add a background color. Let's go into our shader editor and go to world. And let's go to our background node. We can separate the shading of our background from the lighting by adding a mix shader, another background shader, and we're going to go insert a light pad and then is camera array and insert it into our mix shader. And that way we have two controls. One controls the lighting. We're not using that right now. Well, let me demonstrate that. So this controls the global lighting, and then this controls the background color, and it's separated from each other. So that's quite useful. And now we're going to start working on the background color and start working on the stars as well. So let's first set up a gradient. So we're going to add a gradient texture, plug it into our background. Let's see, it's tilted. So we're going to add a texture coordinate and a mapping coordinate. Let's rotate the gradient by 90 degree, and we're also going to lower it by setting the x to 0.1. And now we can add a color ramp in between the gradient and the background, and this gives us some control over our background. Let's add some nice colors. I'm going to pick a lighter blue for the horizon. And then we're going to select a darkish blue for the rest of the sky. To get more of a soft gradient, I can set it to something like B-spline, and this will make it transition even more into each other. We can add an even darker blue if you want to. Okay, this will do nicely for now. I usually tweak the colors at the end, but this seems about right. Now what we can do is add some fog to our clouds to make it blend in with the edge of our horizon. Let's go back into object mode. And here, after our color ramp, we're going to add a gradient, a mix RGB node. Let's plug in the gradient into the alpha of the mix RGB. And let's set it to the same color as our fog. Let's add a mapping and texture coordinate node. Let's also rotate it 90 degrees. And let's also add a color ramp. Now our fog is up, so let's invert this. Yep, that's what we want. This is sort of the effect I'm we're going for, and this is going to add some mist to the clouds that seem to be further away. Let's start working on our stars. So we're going to go back into our world. The first thing we're going to do is add in a Milky Way. And to do this, we're going to add a mix RGB. We're going to add a gradient texture. Let's add a color ramp. Let's have a look. Yep, there it is. And let's set up our color ramp like this. We can make it smaller. And we can make it softer by making it into a B-spline. Now let's add a texture and mapping coordinate. And we're going to add a separate XYZ and a combine XYZ. Plug it in. And we are going to manipulate the X factor. So let's plug the X into a matte node and back into the X value. And we're going to add two Musgrave textures. For the first one, I'm going to set scale to 2 and detail to 60. For the second one, I'm going to set scale to 10 and detail to 0.2. And we are going to mix these in together into the X vector. And this is going to create this jagged Milky Way that we can use. You can get a more jagged effect by playing around with the settings or mixing in a different value, but I'm gonna leave it like this for now. I like this. And I'm gonna set the white value to a turquoise, and I'm gonna mix it in using a color dodge, and this is going to give a nice and soft highlighted effect that's all swirly. Next up, I want to have the same fog effect going on as with the clouds, and I can just go to our cloud and I'm just gonna select the gradient color ramp and mapping that I used for my clouds, and let's just paste it into our world. And let's mix it in. I'm gonna add a mix RGB node. I'm gonna drag this into the alpha. And let's select the same color as we used for our clouds. And then we need to adjust this as well. I can also lower the fog a bit, make it softer by setting this to a B-spline, stuff like that. And so this will create some fog. Okay, let's add some stars. And so in between our color dodge and our color ramp, I'm going to set up a Voronoi texture. let's add it in using a mix RGB, and we're going to set the scale to 100, and then we're going to add a color ramp, and let's set the color ramp like this. And this gives this star effect, which is nice. But what I also want to do is give some color to the stars. So we're going to take the color value and mix it in with our stars. So to do this, we're going to add a mix RGB node. We're going to set it to color. And we're going to take the color information from our Voronoi, plug it in, and let's set it to a value of 1. And this gives us all kinds of colors, a whole rainbow of colors, but I want it set to some colors that I want. Usually stars vary somewhere between more of an orange color and a light blue color. So I'm going to pick something more red and bluish. You can add different colors in this color ramp if you want. You could add yellow, but I'm just gonna add some white. So I have some blue stars, I have some just white stars, and some red stars. Okay, and now I want some extra stars that are located near the Milky Way. And to do this, we are going to copy paste our Voronoi. Let's set this one to 200. Let's mix it in using a mix RGB node. Oh yeah, before I forget, let's set this mix node to screen. And this one too. Let's plug the Voronoi in. Also add a color ramp. Alright. And this is going to create a lot of small stars, but we only want them to be located near this Milky Way. And so we're going to keep it simple, and we're just going to use this color ramp of our Milky Way as an alpha and plug it into this screen. And so now we have more stars towards the Milky Way. And we can adjust the amount by playing around with the color ramp. And maybe you want even more stars, so let's select our Voronoi, set it to 150, and then we're going to add it in again using a screen. Let's add another color ramp, plug it into our screen, and again we're going to use this color ramp as an alpha. Alright, let's have a look at our scene. And that is it. That looks pretty cool. Let's have a look at this Shinkai scene. I used the grass from my Eevee grass tutorial in this one. And I also added this moon. which is basically a very basic emission shader set with strength to 20. And then I use a bloom to get it to glow. I also used some curves to get this comet's trail, and then I used a procedural shader to make it appear like it's moving. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the comet, but if you're interested, you can always go have a look at the notes following the link in the description below. And that concludes our tutorial. I hope you have some use for these clouds or a night sky in one of your scenes. Let me know if you liked it in the comment section below. Please like and subscribe, and see you next time.